What's up everybody? Welcome back to another segment of this 2024 Kawasaki ZX6 stunt build. Today we're going to be running through the frame and the bodywork of this bike. There's only some slight modifications that we've had to do to make everything work, everything fit. We're going to talk about the subframe. The subframe did need some improvement, so we replaced that. There's only a few minor things that have broken. I'll show you how we're going to replace those things and make some improvements. I did take a little bit of a breather from this build series. I went down to the AIM Expo, went down to the One Moto show, hung out with some friends, didn't really have to work, so it was kind of nice. Really hung out and checked out some of the cool custom bikes and everything that's out there. Just took some photos, so I'll share those with you guys right now. I want to start at the front of the bike and work my way back. One of the things that I kind of ran into, it's not really a frame issue, is the ram air duct. I have not broken one in the past. Broke this one. It's cracked. It's starting to get bigger. I don't really have a support for the windscreen hoop, and that puts a lot of pressure just straight down onto that ram air duct, and I think it's just taken some abuse. Now it's turning into a frame because I have this Johnny P fairing stay. It's made out of aluminum. It's a really nice piece. We're going to get rid of all that plastic, replace it with something beefier that's able to withstand the abuse that we throw at it. So here you can see the factory ram air duct. We're going to replace it with this guy. It's nice and strong. It's got this hoop here that's going to support the windscreen. That's going to play a big factor into not breaking windscreens anymore. So I'm going to put this windscreen back in its position so I can explain this to you guys. Obviously the stock ram air duct has no support underneath the windscreen like the Johnny P stay has. So we get a lot of flex there, but Kawasaki also changed this windscreen design. It had a vent that went through it for airflow. The thing was actually, much longer also. I needed to chop this thing down for clearance and everything, which just doesn't make the thing any stronger, being that there's this big hole in it. After a few jumps, tucking my legs through, kicking my legs through, landing, it broke pretty quick as soon as I started riding this bike. So I've kind of been dealing with a broken windscreen issue. I zip tied it for a while, tried to glue it, did a bunch of different things. I got a brand new windscreen, but I'd been hesitant to put it on because I knew it was just going to break again. So I just needed to get rid of factory ram air duct, get something with a windscreen support, eliminate the issue of a broken windscreen all the time. There's a little corner that needs to be notched out of this plastic in order for it to fit the fairing stay. Notch it with some tin snips, probably the easiest way to do it. Try and get a clean cut. So those areas needed to be notched out in order to fit these corners. See how we did. So it lines up pretty good. Now we got this new fairing stay all bolted up, got everything plugged in, make sure it's all working. I ended up putting some Loctite on these bolts just to make sure this thing's not going to come loose and back out. So I've got another windscreen I'm going to put on. Still need to paint it, chop it down to size, but I'll probably wait until I get all the bodywork on for that. As you can see, now that it's clear right now, you can see the support hoop right on the back side of that. Now with any pressure of me jumping or throwing my legs over this thing, it's going to have that hoop behind it to support it. It's not going to break this windscreen. Now that the fairing stay is installed, we'll go back to that later when we install the windscreen, move on to this main frame. So my main frame is currently completely factory, the way that it comes. In the past, I have supported this area here. We would gusset it there, try and strengthen this, keep this area from flexing because these frames, they do tend to break in this region around here. Try to eliminate some of that flex, strengthen up this area, but for now, I'm leaving well enough alone. So in the past, we did an install video of this swing arm, and I talked about what these holes were for, and my friend Bob and I, we wanted to build up a swing arm, do it like nobody else has before, so we put some time, some testing, R&D and everything into this swing arm. We came up with this design. We decided to weld these bungs into the swing arm, give it a little more strength all the way across, because These things are really paper thin and they're great for racing. They're perfectly strong for riding on the roads and things like that. With the flatland, you know, 360s and 180 stoppies and all the hops and everything that we end up doing on this thing, it ends up really putting a lot of flex and stress on this thing. Just like most other things, people have been trying to copy this design and make it their own, and nobody can just be unique and do their own thing at this point. But if anybody's interested in one of these swing arms, let me know. I can hook you up with Bob. He can get you dialed. The stock subframes on these bikes have been known to be pretty paper thin. They're made out of cast aluminum. They're a two-part subframe, so you got the front, you got the back. A lot of times what happens when we try to scrape them or whatever is they start to flex, they bend, they break. Not really that great for jumping all around. So over the years, people have been developing way nicer parts. You got billet aluminum subframes now that are machined. They come in several parts, got to be assembled. They can be a bit pricey, but in my opinion, they're totally worth it. Gives you good peace of mind. You don't ever have to worry about that subframe breaking while you're riding, falling apart. Most of them come with a nice titanium piece in the rear. Makes pretty sparks when you scrape it. But these parts are really nice. Things bolt up really well. Everything lines up really well. You can still get your locking mechanisms for your seats. Your seats line up well. And fairings bolt right up. So really good stuff. On this bike, I'm running the anodized black SS Moto subframe. As you can see, everything has its home. Still bolts up really nicely. Battery's got its compartment. The undertail bolts right up from the bottom. The ECU still sits in place. The trunk lock is still there. If you trim things up proper, you can still fit the OEM tail light. I've even seen people cut it to where it still works. You got this big fat piece of titanium on the back. Makes for nice sparks when you scrape it. Don't have it handy, but like I had mentioned, the OEM cast subframe was a two-piece. It would go from about there to there. The second half up here. There were certain ways to weld it and beef it up, which we did in the past, but where it bolted up, it always had a bit of flex. Just wasn't as nice as opposed to a piece like this. This thing is a work of art, super nice. So typically you'd use your key to pop that front seat off. Once the front seat is off, you got this cable here, gives you access to pull the rear seat off. Since we're not keeping keys handy or doing any of that stuff, I got rid of the locking mechanism. I just run that cable out the bottom there, and I just tied it to my sub cage. So now I'll just pull this, my front seat comes off. I have access to that other latch. You can pull the rear seat off as well. I'm gonna work on getting this main bodywork back on this bike so I can show you what slight modifications need to be done to fit crash gauges and things like that. All right, so we got all the bodywork bolted back up on this thing. The only thing really to show on the main body, you got to notch 2 holes, one on each side at the engine mounts so that our crash gauge from impact tech can bolt right up. So as you can see here, just got to get a Dremel, trace your hole, keep it as tight as possible, and notch this hole out so that that engine mount can go right there. Same thing on this side, notch a hole. Didn't actually have to cut through this. I know some people just cut this whole thing out, but I didn't have to. But it did get thin, and I think some of the pressure and just a little flex from the cage here and there ended up cracking that, so I just put a zip tie in it. It's been fine. As you can see, this thing fits real nice and tight into that notched out hole. On the home stretch here, only a couple more things to discuss and we'll be done with this bike build. Here on the Ducati, you can see it's a nice full rounded tank. As you can see over here on the Stunt bike, we've got a nicely shaped dish for a gas tank. Back in the day, we used to just hammer these things down. The gas cap would crack, they would leak all over the place. It just wasn't ideal, but it was what we had to work with. Nowadays, we send these things out, somebody fabricates them. You can see here, there's a nice lip that's built up to my liking here in the back. We put some grip over the top of it. I'm able to stand in this thing, I'm able to sit in it. So this opens up a variety of different tricks. It looks so much better and cleaner aesthetically, and it's very purposeful. I'm gonna pop this seat off here and show you guys something else. So back here at the rear mount of the tank, this little mounting point right here takes a lot of abuse. I jump on this thing a lot, stand on it. So there's a lot of pressure here in this area, and I've actually had the tank at the mounts crease and start leaking back here. So I requested that they add some brackets and support back here. Now I don't have that issue of that stress and those leaks. I need to touch up some paint back here, getting a little rust. So one of the last and final things to discuss is these seats. So these seats are a little custom. They've got some high density foam in the rear here because I tend to stand here like this. My feet end up there. It's a little stiffer here, a little softer up here in the front for comfort when you're sitting there. Got some nice covers that have some good stitching in them, and they're definitely a bit grippier than what the stock seat would have. And then the rear, same thing. We got some high density foam here that's built up a little bit. We got a little cone shape built up in the back here. We got a hole cut out in the middle so we can stick our foot in there. Just opens up a variety of more tricks. One of the last things that I like to do is throw a little hydro grip here. I put my feet here for no-handed circles and things like that. So I like to just add a little grip wherever I feel like it's needed. So I use it a little bit there, and I use a whole lot of it on the gas tank. I was pretty happy with the length of this other windscreen. It should fit pretty well with this new fairing stay, the same length. So what I'm gonna do here is try to trace it so that I can cut it to about the same length. Tape I use just as reference line because this black line just like melts away as you cutting it. I use this drop cloth to throw underneath, that way I can just pick up all the debris, shake it out, blow the bike off, and everything's still clean. So that's pretty much a good rough cut. Now what we'll end up doing is just trying to clean up these edges and smooth this thing out, make it look good. Now that we're covered in plastic, get to painting. I bought this cheap ass angle grinder a long time ago, I think from like Big Lots, back in the day when I just didn't have any money to buy cheap ass tools. This thing's lasted me forever. It's actually still working, so I still use it. I saw this thing on the internet one time. This guy rolled up the cord on this thing and I was like, man, that's awesome. I'm gonna do that every time now. So make a little loop up here, and you start winding. Work your way up in a nice straight line. Put your plug through the loop, like so, and then pull from the bottom. Keeps everything nice and organized and tight. I dig it. All right, we got the windscreen all painted up. Looking good, bolted back up. Added a little bit of this hydro turf in between the hoop and the windscreen, just to eliminate any vibration if there is any. This whole thing tied together really well. The stay looks nice. The windscreen's cut down nice and short. I like it. Should work out good. We've done it, guys. We've officially completed this build series. Thank you guys for being here, tagging along. This bike is by far my favorite sport bike I've ever built. Really gets the job done well. I hope that you guys like my setup. I hope that you learned something. And if you guys have any questions, hit me up. Hit me up on Instagram. Hit me up here in the comments. And if there's anything else you guys want to see, anything more you want to learn, just let me know. We'll build some more content around it. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys soon.
Am I dreaming? No, I'm living in my dream.